My favorite Star Trek Beyond line is the smartest of J.J. Abrams movies. My favorite line in Star Trek Beyond is the smartest and most insightful bit of spoken dialogue in the Star Trek movies produced by J.J. Abrams. Star Trek Beyond was directed by Justin Lin from a screenplay by Simon Pegg and Doug Young. To their credit, Pegg and Young went back to the source material and hewed Star Trek Beyond closer to the spirit of Star Trek, the original series. As a result, Star Trek Beyond fused J.J. Abrams' trademark slam-bang action with a greater emphasis on character depth, especially for Captain James T. Kirk, Chris Pine. Star Trek Beyond starts off much more sober and philosophical than the two prior films J.J. Abrams directed, Star Trek 2009 and Star Trek Into Darkness. 3 years into the USS Enterprise's 5-year mission, Captain Kirk feels lost. The Starship Enterprise's voyages have become episodic to Kirk. Worse, James mourns his father, Lt. George Kirk, Chris Hemsworth, on his birthday. As Kirk tells dear Leonard Bones McCoy, Carl Urban, James is now 1 year older than his father ever was. Kirk feels the answer to his woes is to leave the Enterprise and take over running the massive starbase USS Yorktown. Why I love Star Trek Beyond's Commodore Paris dialogue to Captain Kirk partially, it's the grace and compassion with which Commodore Paris delivers the line to Captain Kirk that makes it so haunting to me. But more so, it's the insight behind Paris's words. Star Trek Beyond is a metaphor for life. For Kirk, life on the Enterprise was routine, even dull, until disaster struck. Kirk needed to trust his crew and himself to defeat the villainous Krall, Idris Elba. Commodore Paris's dialogue was foreshadowing the crisis Kirk was about to face, but it's also a profound musing on the secret loneliness and isolation of a starship captain. Anyone can relate to Kirk feeling lost and adrift. Certainly I can on occasion. J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movies remain state-of-the-art cinematic thrill rides that injected new vitality into Star Trek, which continues to be felt in the various Star Trek on Paramount Plus series. Star Trek, as produced by Abrams, remains incredibly entertaining and rewatchable. However, no one will ever accuse Abrams' Star Trek movies of being overly thoughtful. The trade-off for J.J. Abrams' kinetic action and galactic crises was shedding the moral quandaries and philosophical issues that define classic Star Trek television shows. One of the most underrated and refreshing aspects of Star Trek Beyond is that it contains smatterings of insightful dialogue. Spock, Zachary Quinto, telling Kirk, "We do what we always do, Jim. We find hope in the impossible," is a perfect distillation of how the Starship Enterprise's camaraderie is the key to their ability to achieve victory from certain defeat. I love how Commodore Paris's compassionate line to Captain Kirk sees into Jim's soul and secretly urges him toward his ultimate realization in Star Trek Beyond. Commanding the Starship Enterprise is Kirk's first, best destiny. Anything else is a waste of material. J.J. Abrams' 2016 film Star Trek Beyond may not be the most iconic or box office shattering entry in the Star Trek franchise, but it is a film rich with thematic depth and moments that speak to the core of what Star Trek has always been about: hope, unity, and the power of collaboration. Of all the lines scattered throughout this visually stunning and action-packed film, one stands out to me not just because of its emotional weight, but because of the profound wisdom it carries. Delivered by the film's central antagonist, Krall, played by Idris Elba, the line captures a smart, timeless message. Unity is not your strength. It is your weakness. At first glance, this might seem like just another standard villain line, cynical, menacing, and meant to deflate the optimism of the heroes. But in the context of Star Trek, where unity, diversity, and peaceful cooperation are foundational ideals, this statement is a direct challenge to everything the Federation stands for. It's the ultimate critique of the Federation's utopian vision of unity and mutual progress. The brilliance of this line lies not in its face value, but in how it encapsulates a complex argument about the nature of strength, survival, and civilization. Let's break this down. Krall, once a Federation captain named Balthazar Edison, turned against the very institution he once served. He was marooned on a distant planet, and over time grew to resent the Federation's ideals of peace and diplomacy. From his perspective, unity and collaboration had led to complacency. For him, survival had always been about competition, war, and the survival of the fittest. His worldview was shaped by the harsh realities of his time as a soldier, where brute force and aggression were necessary tools for survival. To Krall, unity was an illusion of weakness that softened people, making them vulnerable to stronger, more ruthless forces. When Krall tells Kirk, "Unity is not your strength, it is your weakness," he's speaking from a place of profound disillusionment. He sees the Federation's reliance on unity as a crutch, something that holds them back from the harsh, competitive reality of the universe. This sentiment reflects a deeper, more philosophical tension between idealism and realism, a theme that resonates in many of Abrams' Star Trek films but finds its sharpest articulation in Beyond. In a way, Krall represents a perspective that many have towards utopian ideals. He is the voice of those who believe that peace and cooperation are not sustainable, that sooner or later, conflict and chaos are inevitable. His belief is that civilizations built on unity will eventually crumble when faced with real adversity because they lack the edge that only constant struggle can sharpen. Krall's ideology is an inversion of the Federation's values, and that is what makes him such a compelling antagonist. But what makes this line truly smart, and perhaps the smartest in all of Abrams' Star Trek films, is how it invites the audience to reflect on the nature of unity itself. Is Krall right? Does unity make us weak? Is there a kernel of truth in his philosophy, even if it's buried beneath layers of bitterness and misanthropy? In typical Star Trek fashion, the film doesn't give a simplistic answer. Instead, it encourages us to consider both sides. The Federation, with its diversity and idealism, thrives because of unity, not despite it. Kirk and his crew are not strong because they are the best fighters or the most ruthless. They are strong because they work together, complement each other's strengths, and trust in their shared purpose. The very thing Krall sees as a weakness, cooperation, compassion, and shared ideals, is ultimately what defeats him. Kirk's response to Krall's cynicism is not through brute force, but through the collective action of his crew. Each member of the Enterprise plays a vital role in overcoming the challenges, and it's their unity that proves Krall wrong in the end. The beauty of this line is in how it sparks a conversation about the balance between strength and vulnerability, about how societies should organize themselves in the face of external threats. It taps into a very human question: are we stronger alone or together? Krall's view is the classic survivalist mentality, where only the strong survive, and unity is a form of weakness that leads to stagnation. But Star Trek Beyond ultimately shows that real strength is found in unity, in the ability to rely on others, to trust, and to build something greater together than we ever could alone. This is why Krall's line resonates so deeply. It's not just a clever piece of dialogue, but a philosophical challenge that gets to the heart of Star Trek's most enduring themes. It forces us to question our assumptions about strength and weakness, about unity and division. And in doing so, it elevates Star Trek Beyond to a level of intellectual depth that is rarely seen in blockbuster sci-fi films. In a franchise built on hope for a better future, Krall's line serves as a reminder that the path forward is never without its challenges. It's a line that speaks to the fears and doubts that exist in any utopian vision, but also to the resilience of the human spirit, and that is why it stands out as one of the smartest moments in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek films. In a franchise built on hope for a better future, Krall's line serves as a reminder that the path forward is never without its challenges. It's a line that speaks to the fears and doubts that exist in any utopian vision, but also to the resilience of the human spirit, and that is why it stands out as one of the smartest moments in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek films.